Hi, I'm JJ. Welcome or welcome back. I do apologize for all the noise from the heaters and stuff. It's really cold here, so I I have them running. So hopefully it will shut off soon. But today I wanted to talk a bit more for recommendations for books. They're books that I have been thinking about, but I haven't mentioned or haven't gotten a chance to talk to in depth, and I wanted to share them here. So the first one, and this one has been on my mind for a while, pretty much since I've read it. I, just think about it every so often. And it's Where They Burn Books, They Also Burn People by Marcus Antonio Hernandez. So this book it's a dual story. It essentially can be read as two separate stories. They're just kind of interconnected just because, so you read a bit about the past and then you kind of jump back and forth. But if you take them separately, they're both completely separate books that can be enjoyed separately. So the first one is set in 1549 in the Maya, with the Maya people of the Yucatan Peninsula. And so essentially you have these priests who are going there and they're trying to convert all these pagans to Christianity. And they think that they're the civilized Christians, but the stuff that they're doing to the native population to try to force them into Christianity is not at all Christian. And so you see it get worse and worse as they're trying to, pat themselves on the back and convert more people and build more, monasteries for their priests and stuff like that. And this one is so proud because he's converting the most people, and then he's realizing that they're pagans who believed in multiple gods, and so they just added this god to their prayer list. And they're like, well, we have a god for our crops, and we have a god for our this and that, but we don't have a god for our soul. So yeah, we'll pray to him. And he's like, so he feels like he was humiliated, and so he takes it out on the population for so he starts out as like this nice person who's trying to convert people, or he sees himself as this nice person. But once he's feels like he's been humiliated and taken advantage of, all bets are off, and he's just gonna try to force conversion any way possible. And so that storyline, it does take a little while to kind of get into. And then once it does, though, it's absolutely fascinating. And then the next storyline takes place in 2010, and there is this very religious boy who basically goes like door to door with his mom and tries to convert, knock on the door and try to convert people. And then he really likes this one girl who has a boyfriend, and it's the exact opposite of a love story. It's a story of obsession and how her not liking him back and choosing this guy he thinks is this rich, selfish, cheater, horrible person, not a Christian, like anything like him. And why could she like someone like that? And so he becomes like almost like it's a villain or villain origin story of how that forces him to just become this crazy person who is essentially, well, if I can't have her, no one can type of story, and wants to kill his rival, her boyfriend. And she's in love with books, so since it's not the Bible, it's the worst, affront to him. in addition to not wanting him. So he essentially makes this plan where he wants to burn the library with her boyfriend inside, just to win her. And so both stories are these stories about how religion can turn into this horrific thing if you get this obsessiveness to it, where all these wars are fought for people who think their side is right, and they have this like religious conviction. And so this shows how destructive those ideas are, and how brutal you are to people who are either not like you, or who aren't doing what you think they should do, or who you feel are taking advantage of you because you're such a good person, and they're these horrible people who don't see that. And so it's so haunting and tragic in the way that it depicts these basically these descents into madness, that have this like religiousness, religious tone to it. But I think about it constantly, and I just wanted to recommend it. The next one, speaking of kind of obsession, it's a nonfiction book called The Tiger, and it's a true story of vengeance and survival, and that's by John Valiant. And so in 1997, Far East Asia, there's a tiger who essentially is not hunting prey. He is avenging himself by, the people who are poachers and stuff, and he essentially starts hunting the people who hunting him. And it's utterly fascinating because not only does he the writer is able to show the stories of all sides, the poacher, the tracker, and the movements and sorry, of the tiger. You also get this fascination about the culture and stuff, about the about poaching and about predators, and you get a really interesting story also about tigers in general. Like, you really get to learn about them and how they could tell the difference between like a plane going or a helicopter, because the helicopters were essentially the poachers trying to get in position and stuff. And so they would actually jump in trees and swat at helicopters, because helicopters, they could distinguish the sound of them versus the sound of just a small plane going overhead, and they weren't basically out to get the planes, but they were out to get the helicopters. So they knew what was going on, and then you also just get this eeriness to it as the hunted becomes, or the hunters become the hunted. Sorry about that whole confusion, but it's just a really interesting and fascinating story, and it's so well done. I definitely, especially if you like animals and you like survival type stories, it's really good. Another dual story narrative novel is Orphan Train by Christina Baker Klein, and this is another one that's like a dual storyline. So orphan trains were in the United States. They used to send out children who were orphans, or even children from homes that could no longer care for all of their children, and so they had to give up a few or some of them. And they would send them like by the thousands on trains heading out Midwest and out west to the unknown, and praying that they would have a better life out there, but not really knowing where they're going or who they're going to or what's going to happen. And so we had that here in the United States. And so this story in more present day tells about this indigenous teen troubled girl who's trying to stay out of juvie, but she's aging out of the foster care system. She's alone, she's scared, she doesn't really know what the future holds for her. And the only way that she's been able to stay out of juvie is to kind of do community service work. So she's helping this older woman, an old lady, clean out her, essentially her attic or whatever, and starts talking to her, and she learns her story. And that old lady was an Irish immigrant child who was one of them that was sent on the orphan trains. And so the two generations realize that they have a lot more in common with each other than they realized. They are a lot more alike than different. And the teenager learns about this horrific history in our past that she wasn't aware of. And then when you take the indigenous aspect of it, about how many of the children were taken from their families and forced into these schools, you kind of get a sense of just how similar the situations were, where their children were taken, but on the orphan trains, a lot of them, families willingly sent them away, expecting them to be okay, hoping for them to be okay and to have a better life, but willingly giving them up, whereas the indigenous families didn't get that opportunity or that choice. But otherwise, their ideas of safety and security, and also understanding and knowing if there is a future and hope for you, were similar despite their circumstances and stuff. So I read that book ages ago. I've been thinking of rereading it recently, but I just wanted to share that for someone who might not have heard of it, but it is a really good story, and it is in a time of history that a lot of people aren't aware of. And the next one is Wicked River, Lee Sandlin, and this is another nonfiction, and it's basically the history of the Mississippi River, and the basically the people who grew up around it. So all the different towns that prospered and were built up around it, because as people moved west, they kind of stopped at the river for a while, and that was like the westward. So the river was, the towns going up along the river were essentially, when you think of Wild West and how lawless they were, they started there along the Mississippi, because they were out of, all the church areas. They were out of the reach of law enforcement, so they could do whatever they wanted. So of course, as soon as civilization advances, some of the first things that go up are brothels. And then because brothels go up, the next things that go up have to be churches to try to get everybody back on the straight and narrow. And so it's very interesting to see all these different developments and stuff around the river. You get to learn the kind of people that moved out there, the kind of people that had to survive. You get to learn the history about those different places, and the laws or the lawlessness there. And then you get to learn about the river itself, how dangerous it was, a lot of the different shipping and stuff that went along. You learn about they used that for the slave trade route. So slaves weren't, once they were no longer in the North legally, they would still ship them all to the South. So the North was still making money off of slavery, even though they could not have slaves there. they were benefiting from the slave trade by sending them down south. And so there was these slavers, riverboats. And so just that the whole history of that area of building and advancing out west and stopping there along the way, I found it really fascinating. I like that kind of stuff. I like learning about time periods or places and stuff that I didn't fully know about. And I also read this one shortly before I did my reread of Huckleberry Finn, and then when I read James, and it made me understand it a little bit more. Like, Mississippi River is almost a character in itself, and when you see that and you witness that within those other stories, it just kind of gives more depth into what you're reading, and especially just learning, like I had listened to the Cattle Kingdom and stuff, and that was completely out west, but this is before that, and this is kind of a prelude to that, in settling and trying to make a go of it, but being by a river that's it's called Wicked River for a reason, because it's dangerous out there. What was really interesting to learn about is how the river switched, and how when you're talking in regards to slaves, how depending on the side of the river that you were on, I think if you're on the west of the river or the north or the south, depending on how it went, one side was slave and one side were free. So slaves could be going to bed in their quarters at night. The river can switch. They would be on the same land, but now the river is on the other side of them, and now they're actually free, and there's nothing their owners can do, because the land switched, the river switched, and there's so many fascinating, intricate stories that go along this river, and if you like any kind of history at all, it's definitely worth the read. And then quick, another fiction one, a quick read. I read True Grit this year. I wish I had read it for June on the Range, but I had read it. I read it way before that, and so now I know I can postpone my westerns and stuff and read them for June on the Range. But if you're looking for something to read for June on the Range this coming year, True Grit is a story of vengeance. It's a really great young girl, female character who is trying to get revenge for the people who killed her family, and she has to work with a ranger who essentially disgraced and kind of dangerous, but she has to see if she wants to trust him or not, and a couple of different people along the way that she has to work with in order to seek out her vengeance that she very desperate to have. And she's such a great character, such a strong protagonist, a young, very smart girl who's witty and strong and will not take no for an answer, and she's not scared, and she's just such a delight to read, and it's a fun story, despite some of the darker themes and stuff. It's a really almost like a children's story. You could read it to them because the character is so young, but I definitely enjoyed that one so much more than I was expecting. And then the last one I wanted to talk about was another nonfiction, The $1 Billion Whale. This is actually the first book I read when I started reading, listening to audiobooks, at least like 6 years ago or so. And This is a true story of this Malaysian con artist, Jolo. I don't know how to for sure pronounce the name anymore, but he essentially swindled over $5 billion in what they call the heist of a century. So he started in 2009, and he didn't get caught until 2019, but he swindled with the help of the Sachs, what is the different huge investment firms, and he essentially got so many people involved throughout the world, whether he was falsely, like financing the Wolf of Wall Street movie, or if he was like hobnobbing with celebrities and had like yachts and stuff so that everybody thought he was richer than he was, so then they would give him more money and invest in more money, and it just was this almost Ponzi or a pyramid scheme of like, he looked like he was on the top, so then he got more money because he got people to believe that he had more money, and obviously when you have money, then people are willing to give you more money, and it just kind of snowballed in a way that he essentially bamboozled so many rich people, so many celebrities, so many companies, so many countries, and just if you like heists, and knowing that this is real, and just sitting here going, how did you even have the nerve to try half of the stuff that you did? But yeah, so he was an international fugitive. He was wanted by the Malaysian and the U.S. authority on criminal charges, and it's just, it was a very entertaining story, just because like I didn't know what to expect, or what he would try to do next, or what he would get away with next. And if you want to, go along for the ride, it's definitely a interesting one. And I did not write the name of the author for that one, but it's called The $1 Million Whale. Anyway, those are my recommendations. I hope that you found some of them interesting. I could talk about a few of them even longer, but I won't. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and have a great day. Happy reading, as usual.